男人们觉醒吧，以后越来越多的大龄剩女，她没有人要的。
Men are beginning to awaken, and in the future, more and more older unmarried women will face a situation where they are ignored and no one is willing to marry them. In the past, dowries of 200,000 yuan, 300,000 yuan, or even 500,000 yuan, 600,000 yuan were common, yet these women were still dissatisfied with men, complaining that men lacked ability and that their parents did not have a pension. Additionally, the demands for men to hand over their salary cards and to take care of the woman's parents while ignoring the man's parents have become a thing of the past. Nowadays, many men in China have seen through all of this and are no longer willing to compromise themselves to please these older women. Houses, cars, savings, dowries. What were once considered essential conditions for marriage are now things men are no longer willing to compromise on. Because now, older unmarried women in China always set their expectations very high, yet they themselves are not particularly outstanding. However, more and more men have chosen to lie flat, tang ping, no longer caring about marriage. They believe that living alone, putting money into the bank to earn interest, is fully sufficient to secure their retirement. Compared to accommodating the demands of high expectation women, this lifestyle is much more comfortable. As time goes on, the reproductive value of older unmarried women gradually decreases, and men are no longer willing to spend a large amount of money to marry a woman who cannot bear children. They no longer want to live a life where they are looked down upon, criticized, and exploited, nor do they want to be treated like slaves serving women. Men are beginning to understand that rather than living such a miserable life, it is better to choose singlehood, living freely and comfortably, and being able to take good care of their own parents. For those older unmarried women, what may await them in the future is only the fate of growing old alone.
相亲市场要大变天了。
The Chinese matchmaking market is undergoing a major shift, and it is becoming increasingly difficult for older unmarried women to find a spouse. This is because men are becoming more rational and clear-headed. Recently, an interesting incident occurred at a matchmaking corner in China. Many older unmarried women demand that the men must own a house and a car, and also provide a substantial dowry and gold jewelry such as rings, necklaces, and earrings. However, the men's response was very clear. They are willing to meet these demands, but the woman must undergo a premarital checkup and provide proof of her general physical condition, GPC. The men's attitude is firm. They are willing to provide a house, car, and dowry, but these are savings accumulated over 2 generations, and they require a woman with a clean record. This incident has sparked widespread discussion online. Some argue that men should not treat women as objects of transaction or equivalent exchange. This is a form of discrimination and disrespect towards women. They believe men should value a woman's inner qualities rather than her virginity, and that imposing traditional views on women is shameful. Since the topic of tradition has been mentioned, some people have responded. In the past, the 8-pallet sedan was used to transport a lady from a good family. The official marriage was to a virtuous wife and mother. The 3 mediators and 6 appointments were to hire a woman who was knowledgeable and refined, and a substantial dowry was to marry a woman with a pure body. Historically, Chinese marriage requirements included purity as a basic standard, so why has it become a high standard today? At the same time, many people point out that if a dowry is required, it essentially represents a transaction or sale, and demanding a virgin is not excessive. They use the analogy that if they spend the price of a new car but end up with a used car, a modified car, or even an accident-prone or tampered car, they would be at a loss. Therefore, if these women demand equality, it is reasonable for men to require a car condition report. After all, a man is marrying a wife, not a vampire who depletes the family's resources.
都2024年了，姐妹们，找对象必须要认清一个现实了。
It's 2024 now, and ladies, you need to face a reality. Chinese men are becoming increasingly smart. Have you noticed that men are not only becoming less proactive, but also less willing to spend money on women? They are clearly aware that spending money on women has no real significance. It's more important to have money for themselves. The era of licking dogs and submissive men is over. In the past, men would often spend a lot of money to pursue women, but now men are asking, why should I spend money on you? Can spending money win your genuine affection? How likely am I to succeed? So they prefer to spend money on improving themselves, such as buying new clothes or investing in skincare, dressing more attractively to attract other potential partners. Isn't that better? Previously, men might have been willing to spend money for love, but now many men prefer to invest in self-improvement. Today's young men are more meticulous about their appearance, from hairstyles and outfits to skincare. They are involved in activities like skiing and cycling, beyond just swimming and gym workouts. Many of them, especially those born in the 2000s, exhibit a rebellious charm that many women find particularly attractive. So, when men start to focus on spending their money on themselves, it really creates pressure. Single women, you must be aware of this change and feel a sense of urgency.
都2024年了，还有一大帮宁缺毋滥、高喊结婚绝不将就的小仙女们。
Even in 2024, there are still many little fairies who persist in the belief of never settling and never compromising on marriage, feeling good about themselves, believing they will surely find the right partner. To these women who have been brainwashed by toxic positivity, I want to say that with the collapse of the dog-licking economy in 2024 and the reduced investment in women by the capital market, many men have completely given up pursuing women. Look at those awakened men. They either switch game equipment daily or change cars and fish, living very comfortably. What is even more worrying is that the new generation of post-00s girls are very clear-headed. They quickly enter the marriage market once they start working, actively pursuing young men with good conditions. Meanwhile, many post-80s and post-90s little fairies are still thinking of using old tactics to handle men, such as being slow to warm up, using the strategy of playing hard to get, and demanding various gifts, red envelopes, and rituals. These old tricks have long been seen through by men and are no longer effective. Some women with strong self-esteem might retort that they would rather not marry and end up in a nursing home with their girlfriends rather than settle. However, many so-called girlfriends have already quietly entered the marriage market, and you might end up alone in the end. In the current economic downturn, if you can meet someone who cares about you, respects you, and is willing to work for the future, you should cherish them and stop dreaming of a Prince Charming coming to marry you. If you continue to ignore this batch of hard-working and ambitious men, they might choose younger women in the future or decide not to marry and just focus on earning and spending money. After all, compared to women, men still have more advantages and confidence in earning money. Those who continue to cling to the never-settling attitude might end up with nothing but the passage of time.
尤其是大龄剩男，我就想说，你们天天
I was born in 1990, and now I'm already 35 years old. I really want to say a few words to those older single men. When you were in your 20s, you didn't look for a partner, and now that you're in your 30s, you're starting to panic. You think young girls aren't suitable for you, and you look down on older single women like us, thinking that you can't win us over. Actually, that's a misconception. The 20s are not just a golden period for women, it's the same for men. You might have thought that back then you didn't have money or a house, and that dating required spending money, but do you think that dating in your 30s doesn't cost money? When you were in your 20s, you felt that you didn't have money, a house, or a car, so you wanted to wait until you had earned money, and then chase after girls in your 30s. Even when you're in your 30s, you still need to spend money to maintain a relationship. But in your 20s, it's actually easier to impress girls. A bouquet of flowers, a meal, or a trip, they are really easy to win over, as long as you treat them sincerely. However, by the time you're in your 30s, things become more complicated. You'll find that not only does it cost more money, but dating also becomes more difficult. Older single women may be more selective because they've been through more and have a clearer understanding of what's good and what's not. If your gifts are too cheap, they won't be appreciated. If they're too expensive, you'll feel it's a waste. These issues make dating even more challenging. Therefore, you should seize the best opportunity to find a partner when you're in your 20s. Don't keep saying that older single women have missed the best age for marriage, because you've also missed it. You men in your 30s have also missed the best age for marriage. Now you'll find that not only have you not bought a house or a car, but you also haven't found a partner. So my advice is for the young guys in their 20s, start taking relationships seriously at that age. And for the men in their 30s, do you understand? What's most important for you now is to make money because women in their 30s often have higher financial expectations, and your gifts can't be too cheap. These are all lessons I've learned from my own past failures.
我都不可能要，我42岁，我单身。
I will never look for a woman in this lifetime. I'm 42 years old, have been single and working for 10 years, and have saved up 600,000 yuan. Now, I live off the interest. I won't work my life away for a woman. You might say I'm extreme, but let me tell you, the belief I have held onto for the past 10 years is to never get married. As long as I don't get married, I can achieve financial freedom.
As long as I don't get married, I won't be dragged down. As long as I don't get married, I can avoid all the high expenses. Houses, cars, gold jewelry, gold necklaces, bride prices, social interactions, gifts for women. All of these are high costs, and none of these expenditures are for us men. As long as I don't get caught up in car loans or mortgages, and I don't care about continuing the family line, I can't even spend all my 4,000 yuan monthly salary. If you get married, you're doomed to a life of hard work and debt. But my life is carefree and worry-free. If you get married, I can bet you'll fall into a deep abyss of debt, never to rise again. In the future, if I have a minor illness, I can treat it. If it's a major illness, I don't care, no need to treat it. After all, I don't need to pass on my lineage, and without car loans or mortgages, I live freely every day, sleeping as long as I want. Brothers, let me tell you, not marrying a wife or getting married is the wisest choice you can make. It's the biggest blessing and the most cost-effective way to live. As long as I don't get married, I won't become a simp, and I won't have high expenses. As long as I don't get married, I naturally don't need to buy a house or a car, and my life pressure is almost zero. I can't even spend all of my 4,000 yuan a month, and now, I'm the person with the most cash in my hometown. Not getting married means I don't have to go out of my way to please women, I won't be blinded by love, and I won't lose out big. Nowadays, you spend tens of thousands on an engagement, only to turn around and possibly get divorced soon after, without even getting the bride price back. This happens way too often.
Isn't it ridiculous? Wasn't there a news story recently?
A man had been married for many years, and it turned out none of his 3 kids were his. Brothers, I don't work my life away for women, I don't become a simp, and I don't get married. This way, from the beginning, I avoid many risks in life. I don't need to work hard at my job. From the start, I live an easy and carefree life. Don't live in what others call an exciting world. Live in your own exciting world.
我说大龄剩男们啊，你们慌什么慌？你们不要慌。
Why should us older single men panic? There's no need to panic. Just look at those older single women, they aren't panicking at all. The moment they open their mouths, they demand tens of thousands of yuan in dowry, a car, a house, and savings. Do you have those conditions? If those older single women aren't in a hurry to get married, why should we be? If they themselves don't plan on getting married, how can we even manage to get married? I suggest that we shouldn't get married either. I myself am an older single man, without a wife and without a girlfriend. And I don't plan on getting married. Because older single women don't plan on getting married, right? How they live, we will live the same way. If they grow old without children, then us older single men will also grow old without children. If they seriously save money and prepare for retirement, then we should also save money and prepare for retirement. These older single women just want to find rich men, but can they really find one? If they do, it's their good luck, but how many can actually find a rich man? Maybe only 1 out of 100 older single women. So, let's look at the remaining 99 older single women, and see if they can find a rich man. If they can't, then we shouldn't rush into marriage either. Actually, this works out pretty well, doesn't it? If they don't want to marry, we don't want to marry either. That's a win-win situation. It's a win for men and a win for women. So why spend so much money to marry them? We've worked hard for 20 or 30 years, and still haven't saved enough to meet their demands. Why should women be allowed to demand this from us? They've also been working for many years, they're about the same age as us, so why do they get to demand that we have money, buy cars and buy houses while they don't need to have any of it? Go ask them. Most older single women probably don't have any savings at all. It's the same for men, many of us don't have savings either. So, why must men meet these conditions? We're all starting from the same point, we're all starting from zero. Society is tough, making money isn't easy, and women understand that too. When they lower their standards and are willing to marry, then we'll consider marrying them. If they're not willing, then we're not willing to marry them either. In the end, they won't be able to outlast men.
Many older women may ultimately face the fate of being valuable, but without a market. Although many still blindly believe that there are 30 million more men than women in China, in reality, the number of single women in China is already approaching 100 million. Some divorced women even ask for exorbitant conditions when looking for a partner, and they feel justified in thinking they should easily find a suitable match. However, you need to understand that people can't be both rich and foolish at the same time. Truly wealthy men are not easily fooled. Some women spend all day studying how to make a man spend 1,000,000 yuan on them with just 3 sentences, or how to make a man obsess over them with just a few words. It's not that I look down on these older fairies, but reality is indeed that harsh. Do you really think rich men are that easy to manipulate? Even if you find a rich man's foolish son, you would still despise him as a mama's boy who lacks masculinity. So, what do men in their 30s mean to you? You might even think that men at this age are more like middle-aged uncles rather than the Prince Charming you've been fantasizing about. Women in their 30s and 40s often like to make their presence felt online, arguing with everyone and constantly showing that they are still in demand. But does arguing help? After all the debates, has anyone been willing to marry you? Has any man been willing to pay for you? Others might just be playing around when dating you, and the final outcome might not be what you expected. So instead of wasting time arguing, it's better to read more books. You need to understand that productivity is the only standard to measure a person's value. If you still don't get this, let me put it more simply. In history, mother-centered societies existed for 30,000 years, but couldn't solve the problem of basic subsistence. Meanwhile, father-centered societies have existed for 3,000 years and have already achieved manned spaceflight. Instead of focusing on unrealistic fantasies, it's better to focus on reality. Finding the right partner sooner is the most practical choice.